Hey guys, I just thought I would do a little flip through of my Inktober work and talk to you a little bit about my thought process for each one. This first one was for bulky and it was inspired by some pictures on Pinterest of these adorable little redhead girls with these big percheron type horses. And this was like the third one that I did, and I did it 3 different times before I was happy with it. In the beginning of a challenge, I think sometimes you struggle with finding a process that works for you, especially if you're using a medium that you don't normally use. I normally work in pencil, so figuring out how to make illustrations with ink was a little bit of a learning curve. For this one, the prompt word was radio, and I didn't really want to draw a radio. Drawing mechanical or electronic things to me is not very interesting. I tend to like to take a more magical, whimsical approach. So for each one of the prompt words, I spent some time in the dictionary Googling the meaning to get ideas that were a little bit more unique. So for when I looked up radio, one of the definitions had something to do with sending and receiving communications. So I thought of a message in a bottle, and then that became this image. This was for blade, and I sort of imagined, the blades on an airplane would be like the wings, and so then I thought that could be translated into Pegasus wings. This one I didn't ever actually post because I didn't like how it turned out. The watercolor didn't really react with the paper the way I expected. Normally when I paint with watercolors, I used Arches or Fabriano paper. And I really like this mixed media sketchbook, but I was not expecting it to handle the watercolor the way that it did. So it didn't really turn out the way that I wanted. I also didn't like that the composition was going off the page once I painted it. So I did it again. And this was my second attempt, which I decided to just stick with the ink. And I like how this one turned out much better. This was for rodent. Not trying to be mean. This little guy, I just decided he could very easily be named Mouse. So that was where that came from. This one was for Storm, and I don't know that I have that much to say about it. Oh, this was the only one where I decided to use some, what's it called? Resist. I always forget what it's called. Where you put it down and then you paint over it and then you scrape it back off and it leaves white areas. What is it called? I can't remember. Somebody will have to help me with that. I'll think of it as soon as I'm done with this. This image was inspired by the picture book biography manuscript that I've been working on for my writing barn class. And this is supposed to be Sonora Webster Carver, who was a woman who dove horses in Atlantic City, and they jumped from a tower that could be up to like 60 feet tall into a 11-foot deep pool of water, which is just terrifying. But one of the horses that she really loved was a paint horse, and his name was Red Lips, because he had these they're really like reddish bay colored markings. So that's that one. This one I didn't like this one because, again, I tried to use the watercolors, and for some reason the watercolor on this paper, I don't know if I'm going to get used to it, but I need to obviously practice with the watercolors more. I didn't really like how this one turned out either, so I do not have it available as a print like the other ones, but here it is. This is for Outpost, and I don't really have anything to add for that one. This one is for Throw. This is where I started to play with using my Winsor Newton Series 7 brush to try to make some like interesting line work with the ink wash. So that was really fun. I also used on most of these I used a colored pencil. I like to use the Colorase pencils to do my initial very light sketch underneath. And this one I used a blue pencil, but then also went back in with a pink one to add some pink areas to kind of warm up the white horse, because I felt like it needed a little bit more color variation and interest. This one is for Hope, and it was the first time I tried painting Appaloosa spots on a horse with watercolors, with the ink. And that was really fun, so I'll probably play with that some more in the future. This one I also did with the blue pencil. My friend Bonnie raises these like gorgeous foundation Appaloosa horses, and she's been asking me for a long time to paint an Appaloosa horse. So this one was kind of with her in mind. This was for, the prompt word was disgusting. Yep, that's what it was. So I did this like kind of kelpie sort of horse in a swamp, and added these like kind of gnarly cypress trees. The roots kind of end up disappearing. I didn't do a very good job of like emphasizing the roots, but maybe that would have taken away from the actual like focus of the image. This was for Slippery. And this is supposed to be a Norwegian Ford horse, which normally you see them with like a mane that's been cut short, so that you can see they have like a stripe of black that runs through their mane. But I really prefer how they look with like a thick mane and tail. So I drew this one with a natural mane, but the result of that is that it's kind of hard to tell that it's a Norwegian Ford, but that's okay. They're really beautiful horses. This is one of my favorites because as I was painting this one, I discovered a really fun way to paint grass, and I just like had a blast making this grass with my paintbrush. It was super fun, and I did it in some of the other ones that you'll see, like this. This was for Armor, so that's pretty self-explanatory, but I also had fun with the grass on this one, and also added some of the cloud brush marks that I did in one of the previous ones. This sketch I did for Rocket, and I didn't actually paint it because I didn't really think that the composition was what I wanted. It was too far away, and the far away composition gives like a better sense of the tower that the horse is diving off of, but I just really wanted the focus to be more on the rider and the horse. I didn't want them to be so small. So I did this one instead. It's a little closer view. Also meant to be Sonora Webster Carver, and the horse, the Duchess of Lightning, was this horse's name. This one was for the prompt trap, and my joke was that anytime you see a pretty girl trying to lure someone into a forest in a story or a fairy tale, it always ends up being a trap. They always end up being sort of up to no good. So that was where this idea came from. Again, I did the grass here, and I went a little crazy with the tree branches to give sort of a foresty feel to it. And this was the last one that I did. This was for the prompt word dizzy, so I thought of a carousel horse. And oh, this isn't the end. There's one more. Sorry. For this one, this was for coral, and I had the idea that the mane and tail of the horse could be made of coral. So I ended up with this sort of seahorse kind of character, which interestingly enough, the very first Inktober image I did, which is in this notebook, was a different kind of seahorse. So here's my first, set that aside. Here's my first one that I did. This was for the prompt word fish. And I did this in, this is a Crescent Render notebook. And while I really like the notebook, see, I did this really thick ink and it doesn't bleed through at all. So that was really nice, but it also does not handle any wet media, transparent wet media, I should say. Like maybe gouache would be okay, but watercolor on this paper is a disaster. So I ended up not continuing in this notebook because I really wanted to do watercolor washes, which was sad because I saved this notebook all year to use for Inktober. The second one, this was my second Inktober image. This was for the word wisp, and for this one I also was still trying to find my process, how I was going to do things. So this one was a mix of ink and Copic marker and some colored pencil in the background, and it's okay. I didn't really like how the colored pencil turned out. Maybe I didn't spend enough time making the colored pencil solid, I guess. But anyway, that was the second one, and that's all of my Inktober images. This was the sketch I did for Bulky, which I didn't end up finishing in this notebook because of the ink wash issue, because I really wanted to paint this horse with ink washes. And this was an early sketch that I did for Blade that I ended up redoing in the other notebook as well. So that's the end. I hope you enjoyed that. And until next year.